So the original idea for the culvert fire pit came to my wife and I. We're just kind of brainstorming, just trying to think of a unique fire pit idea. I was thinking of going along the lines of doing salvaging an old tractor tire rim and using that as kind of like the base material for the fire pit and then putting some rock around it. But she was looking outside and we have a big road culvert that's just sitting on the other side of our fence. And we're going to be using that road culvert for a rainwater harvesting cistern, and we actually already have one installed. But she's just looking at it and she's like, why don't you make a fire pit out of road culverts? And I thought that's a great idea because we have good access to getting road culverts, plus it kind of ties in the road culverts itself, it ties in with some of the other projects that we're doing, like the rainwater harvesting cistern. Our shed is completely sided and the roof is done with corrugated roofing panels. So it just will kind of tie in this kind of nice contemporary, maybe industrial look that we kind of have within our little homestead area here. So the hardest part I would say of this project is not the actual, putting the fire pit together. That's pretty simple. The hardest part is going to be locating the road culverts themselves. Now, where I live here in southern Arizona, we're blessed to have a company called Pacific Corrugated, which is, they're located just outside of Casa Grande, which is about 30 to 40 minutes away from Phoenix. And what's really nice about that specific company is that you can go there, you can order in advance and get a road culvert in whatever diameter that you want and however long that you want. So for our project here, we need a 3-foot diameter culvert that is 2 feet long, and then we also need another road culvert that's 2 feet in diameter that's also 2 feet long. So what I'd recommend is finding a road culvert manufacturer that is somewhat local to you. You might have to drive a few hours in order to get it. So one reason why it's nice to get them pre-cut, because cutting culverts is not necessarily the easiest thing. So if you can find the manufacturer and they're willing to cut it for you, then the rest of the project is really quite easy. So I think the best way for you to try to find a local manufacturer of the road culverts is just go to Google, type in road culvert, and either the state or the province or the region that you live in, and just see where one is located. All right, guys, so this is a 3-foot diameter culvert that's going to be the outer ring of the fire pit. The 2-foot diameter culvert is going to be the inner ring. Now, on this outer ring, we're going to be seeing everything that's going to be on the outside of it. For the 2-foot diameter culvert, we're not going to see what's on the outside of it, we're going to see what's on the inside of the culvert. So on the outside of these culverts, they have some printing and some lettering. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use some denatured alcohol, which is something that you can find at your local hardware store. Lowe's, Home Depot is going to have denatured alcohol. It's really great as a cleaning solvent, and I found that it will take the lettering off these culverts very easily. So all you need is a couple shop towels. You don't need a full gallon of denatured alcohol to do this. You could definitely get away with a liter of it. It's just something that's handy to have around the homestead for sure. So we're just going to get a little bit of this alcohol on our shop towel here. And then if we just rub it right where the lettering is, you see how easy it comes off. So the next step here is to basically grind the top edge here. So where the culvert was cut, there's a lot of burrs and stuff. What I found doing another culvert, or like trying to remove the lettering on another culvert, is that you want to remove the lettering first before you do any of the grinding. And the reason for that is what I found is that some of the lettering that was right at the top here, it was very difficult to get it off, and actually some pieces of it on another culvert I couldn't get off because I think as I was grinding, it heated up the culvert in that area and kind of baked the lettering onto it. So you want to get the lettering off first before you do any of the grinding on the top here. If you're going to be working on metal like this, always wear gloves. It's very easy just to nick yourself on some of the burrs on this cut edge here. So I just don't want to see anyone really ding up their fingers and get a nice slice in them. So just kind of, be careful. Even when you're wearing gloves, you still want to be careful around a lot of these sharp edges here. So now that we've got the 3-foot culvert cleaned up, we're going to clean up the top edge here. So when they cut this, it looks like they use maybe some type of really large bandsaw in order to do this. but it leaves a lot of sharp burrs, and we just want to clean that up for safety's sake. So if anyone ever, puts their foot on this or they put their hand on this for whatever reason, it's not going to leave them with a huge gash in their hand or anything like that, because metal cuts are definitely they're definitely pretty brutal. So what we're going to be using is just like a standard angle grinder with a 60 grit kind of metal kind of polishing bit on it. So when you're grinding metal, I definitely take the proper safety precautions. So I'd recommend getting a small respirator like this. You just need safety glasses, but also have safety goggles, and then also hearing protection as well, just because these things are, they can get pretty loud. All right, so now that we've got the top lips on both the culvert pieces, we've got that grinded down, so it's not nearly as sharp as it was. I can pretty well run my finger on this edge here and it's not gonna cut me. So what we're gonna be doing, this is the spot where we're gonna be putting the fire pit. Now, when I kind of look at this visually, 24 inches above the ground for the fire pit just seems a little bit on the high side to me. So I think we're gonna sink it down about 6 or 7 inches, and then I'll just kind of give it a little bit of a lower profile. So what I'm gonna do first is grab my shovel here, and I'm just gonna trace around it just with my shovel so that I know exactly where it's gonna go, because I'm gonna remove this. We're gonna dig out that dirt underneath of it. Then we're gonna set the other culvert piece, so the 2-foot diameter piece first, and then we're going to set this one over top. Then we'll just make sure that the distances between the inner culvert and the outer culvert are the same all the way around, just so that obviously it looks half decent, right? All right, so we'll get the center culvert piece in place here and get it as much in the center as possible. And we can even key this into the ground a little bit more just by turning the culvert, getting it down just a little bit deeper. We do also want to take some extra care, make sure that the culvert is level. So I'm just using just a rubber mallet here just to kind of tap down some of the sides. All right, we're good that way. All right, now we can put this other culvert piece over top. Ugh. Get it centered. All right, so what I've done here is I've cut a 2x4 at 5 1/4 inches long, and we can use this as a spacer to basically see where the culverts are a little bit too close together. So we can just run it all the way around. Just ensure that we got the right distance here. And it looks like we're pretty good. A little bit tight there. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to make sure that basically the level between the outer and the inner culvert, they're at the same. So you can use a straight piece of 2x4. If you have a 4-foot level, you could certainly use that as well. We just want to make sure that one side isn't really, really low and the other side is really, really high. All right, perfect. Next thing that we can do here is that we can fill in the gap between the inner culvert and the outer culvert. I'd recommend just using sand as opposed to using something like gravel, because if you have gravel, between the different gravel pieces, there's going to be an air gap. and the heat from the fire is going to transfer much easily to the outer part of the culvert here. And if somebody's just like, you know, resting their feet up against the culvert or something like that, maybe a dog comes and sits up against the side of the culvert, anything like that could happen and they could get burned. So one of the last steps that we're going to do here is we're going to cover this top layer with something that looks a little bit nicer than sand. So on our property we have this huge mica field. So I'm just going to wash off the mica and then just kind of put it off level with the top of the culverts here. You could probably buy some nice gravel. You can get creative, use some different type of rock, maybe some type of shiny rock or something like that. All right, so we got the top of the fire pit finished with the mica, and looks pretty cool. So it'll be interesting to see when we have a fire in the evening and the flames are above the level of the culvert, whether or not the mica is going to shine or sparkle or anything like that. So that'll be interesting to see. Other than that, the only other thing that I want to do for the fire pit here is just get a round grill plate for it. But I'm thinking 30 inches in diameter. It'll land between the inner and the outer culvert there. They do sell 24-inch ones, but I think just 30 inches would just be a little bit better. All right, guys, it's been a few months since I put the fire pit together. I've made a few changes. Instead of putting the mica on top, I just put the gravel. And the big noticeable difference is that we've really kind of made this into kind of like a nice seating area with the gravel. I just put up these lights today. So it's becoming a really kind of cozy little area over here so that we can have some evening fires. We've been cooking quite a bit of food on this as well. So the grill here has been working great. It's just a 30-inch grill. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this earlier, but the hardest part of this entire project, or just using culverts in general, is just locating them. So I think just the 2 pieces of culvert for this fire pit was about like 80 bucks. So when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and you see some of the nicer ones, like it's actually pretty comparative in price. So I know a lot of those actually go for more than 100 bucks. So if you can find some culverts locally, you can get a really cool looking fire pit, as well as using this. So these 2-footers and this single footer, I'm gonna be using them for planters in and around this area. So probably like I did with this one here and bury it down about 6 or maybe, I think this one's almost down like 8 or 10 inches. I'd probably do the same for this, fill it up with compost, and then I could even put this kind of on top. So it would be almost like a 2-tiered planter. And I think I'm gonna be putting these where the raised garden beds are. Awesome. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can definitely leave them in the comment box below. Our Facebook group for DIY homestead projects, it's starting to pick up. A lot of people are actually going into solar, doing a lot of solar projects. So there's a lot of interesting threads up there. And I'll leave a link to the Facebook group down below as well. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next video. Talk to you soon.